It is raining here at Humboldt Redwood State Park. Getting little cloud bursts here. As we let a few more people jump on in, just kind of give you a little glimpse of the Eel River in this little shower that we're getting here. How's everyone doing? It's good to see you. My name is Ryan, and I am an interpreter with California State Parks here at the North Coast Redwoods District, and I'm talking to you from Humboldt Redwood State Park. And I'm really happy to be joining you. I know a lot of you are at home, maybe a little stressed, maybe a little bored, maybe a little concerned. And so I'm happy to be joining you here from this beautiful location, trying to bring a little bit of our park into your home, into your environment. I know a lot of people are doing a great job of following the governor's guidelines and the CDC guidelines to shelter in place. And if people are visiting some of our day use areas or our trails, that they're maintaining a good 6 feet social distancing guideline perimeter as well. And so I really appreciate that people are following those guidelines, and also really happy to be able to connect with you all and bring a little bit of this state park into your own home or your own environment or wherever you're at. And you might be wondering where I'm at. I see someone mentioning Elk Creek. This looks like it could be called that, doesn't it? It's called the Eel River, actually. And the Eel River flows through a big portion of the Northern California coast. In this area, it is flowing through the ancestral land of the Sinkyone tribe. And it got its name, the Eel River, because of an eel-like fish called lampreys that live in this area. It was just kind of a misunderstanding in some of the explorers and colonizers that were showing up here, identifying those animals as eels rather than lampreys. But the Eel River flows through a portion of Northern California. I have a map here that I can show you. And so I can bring that a little bit closer if it can stay in focus. So you see that little red dot there up to the top, that's Eureka. I'm like maybe just like a fingernail's distance below that. And that is Humboldt Redwoods State Park. And where I'm talking to you from is an area called Gould Grove. Gould Grove is just in there, just a little ways. And Gould Grove is right next to Burlington Campground, right next to Burlington Visitor Center. And so it's kind of close to Bull Creek and kind of close to Founders Grove as well. So kind of on the northern end of the, or I guess it's the central end of the park, or the central part. So I'm going to walk around here a little bit and show you around this section of the river and some of the area around here, because one of the things about this river that is so special and important is that it has been an important resource for people for thousands of years when it comes to the need for that much larger fish that comes up this river. It's not the lamprey, like I mentioned before. Can anyone guess what that larger fish that comes up this river might be? I'll give you a hint. It's the name of our live stream today. I'll give you a moment. Looks like we have some shy people. Salmon! So this is actually a steelhead, but this is an example of a cousin of the species that we find here. The steelhead trout is a kind of salmonid, along with a lot of other species of salmon. I have a little graphic here that I can show you of the different species of salmon. So in the Northern California coast, where I'm at, nice try about with the goldfish, Sarah. Here in the Northern California coastal streams, we have coho salmon, we have steelhead trout, we have coastal cutthroat trout in some of our areas a little bit farther north. We've got also our Chinook salmon as well. So those are the species that we have in this vicinity. And salmon like this area because of the low gradient streams here, the cool water, the closeness to the ocean, and because of what's surrounding this river, which is a huge forest. Let me turn my camera up here. Of trees. Does anybody know what kind of trees these are? Feel free to enter that guess into the chat there if you want to try to guess what kind of trees we have surrounding this area. No one's guessing. All right, I'll give you a hint. It has wood that's red. I'm giving a message that my image is flipped, but I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. Redwoods, you've got it. Yeah, so redwoods, I hear some people mention Doug fir. There are some Doug fir, but redwoods are not, definitely not redwoods. Good one, Sarah. So, yes, the coast redwood is the world's tallest tree, and around here we've got some huge ones, and these redwoods are really important for these fish. Many trees are really important for these fish, and so I want to ask you a question. Why do salmon need trees? Why do they need trees like redwoods? What would be important about having big trees around these creeks? Any ideas? You know, salmon spend almost half their life, sometimes half their life, sometimes a little more, in fresh water. They are anadromous fish, which means they spend half of their life in freshwater, part of their life in freshwater, part of their life out in the ocean, and part of their life back. So in the Eel River, you might find salmon coming up the stream in the wintertime and the late fall, laying their eggs in some of the gravel here, making nests, and those eggs, when they hatch, these little tiny, pinky-sized little fry begin to migrate down these streams, and they need redwoods. They need these massive trees around here because these trees have a tendency to fall into the stream. And when these trees fall into the stream, they make amazing habitat, great hiding places for salmon. And so when we walk around here in some of these areas of the river and some of the areas of the streams that are tributaries to this river, you'll see big logs that are taller than you are. Logs that are maybe among a pile of other kinds of fallen trees. And it can be a real mess, but these salmon love this kind of habitat because it provides hiding spaces, it provides cool shade under where they can hide when they're really little. Predators don't see them as easily. And trees do something else really important for these salmon. There's all kinds of leaves and sticks and debris that are falling into these streams, and they're going to create food for little insects that these salmon eat. So there's all kinds of macroinvertebrates that are going to be feasting, they're being feasted upon by these little salmon fry. I have a picture of one of these little salmon fry if you'd like to see it. This is pretty blown up compared to what they would look like, only about the size of your pinky. Notice they've got some camouflage on them. Those paw marks are going to help them blend in with the stream bed. I'm going to flip the camera around so that you can see. Look how gravelly this stream bed is. Lots of rocks. So it helps that these fish have this pattern and this sort of greenish gray colored body to kind of blend in with that stream bed. There's all kinds of predators out here, whether it's garter snakes, or it could be even large beetles or birds. And camouflage is going to be a great way for them to avoid any of that danger. So those are a couple reasons that salmon need trees. They provide food, they provide shelter, they provide shade. A couple other reasons that maybe I didn't mention is these redwoods have really large, extensive roots, not deep roots, very shallow roots actually, but extensive roots, and other trees around this stream also. And those roots are holding onto the ground, and they're protecting the soil from eroding into the streams. Because if a whole bunch of mud ended up in this creek, then you've got a whole bunch of gravel that's covered up by mud, and that means that those adult salmon, when they come back up in the fall, they're not going to be able to find good material to make their nests. So I mentioned that salmon need trees, but one of the most amazing things about an ecosystem like a redwood ecosystem or any place is that trees also need the wildlife and the other animals there. So in this case, these redwood trees also need salmon. Salmon are a huge part of the ecology of this landscape. And that's one of the reasons they're so important. The reason that salmon need trees is because of the nutrients that salmon bring back up these rivers. So some salmon, for example, a Chinook salmon, or let's start with a coho salmon. A coho salmon might go out to the ocean and it might spend, let's see if I can get my gimbal to work there. So they might spend out there in that ocean, way down there, about 30 miles away, 30 miles up downstream. Maybe 2 years, those coho salmon out there traveling thousands of miles, eating food like krill and shrimp, getting huge, getting maybe 10 pounds and maybe 2 feet long. Chinook salmon can spend 4 years in the ocean, maybe 5, and they can get close to 100 pounds. And then these fish come back up rivers like this in the hundreds or even the thousands. And according to stories from a lot of the indigenous people in this area, some of these salmon in the past would come up these rivers in such high numbers that it seemed like you could walk across the creek on their backs. That so many salmon would be coming up these rivers that the water would be splashing out of the streams onto the banks. That horses would be afraid to cross these streams because of how many fish that were coming up in the fall and winter time. And when you've got that many fish coming up, they're bringing all those nutrients out from the ocean. And then what are they doing? They're laying their eggs and then they're dying. You've got hundreds of thousands, and some rivers maybe millions of salmon that are dying every year after they spawn, and then that becomes, what do you think? Becomes fertilizer. Fertilizer. Bald eagles, bears, raccoons, river otters, they're all coming down here. They're feeding on all of these different dead salmon carcasses that are down here. They're dragging all those fish up into this forest, and they're feeding the trees. So I wanted to walk up into this forest a little bit, and I wanted you to look at this transition that happens from the Eel River as we move up into this riparian forest, this riparian woodland that is the banks of the Eel River. And it is definitely springtime around here. You can hear the birds, you can hear all kinds of commotion happening. We're gonna make our way up this river a little ways, or up this bank, and I want you to notice how it changes. The complexity of this forest changes. So right now, we're among the willows and the big leaf maples that are about to we're about to reach them. And as we go a little farther, you'll notice the trees start to get taller. It starts to open up. We start to leave this riparian forest. You might have some really massive maples or even some massive cottonwoods, depending on what part of the river you're at. And you can imagine that in about a month, this place is just going to explode with green. It's going to be just a canopy of lime green. And it's going to be just such an amazing feeling to walk into this area. This area is also still within the flood-prone zone of the Eel River. So the river often will flood into this area. So these are trees that can handle flooding environments. We're going to go a little bit farther. Now you might notice another tree that's starting to appear. What do you see here? This little guy here. Anyone know what this is? I told you it earlier. One person, I think Sarah, said that what it was not. It's a redwood. We're going to go a little bit farther here. I'm going to keep going up this hill. Here's a person. I'll make sure to keep my 6-foot social distance. I'm going to wait.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay. Our off-duty interpreter Griff over here.
Look at it.
What'd you find? Oh, my lands. Take a look down here. Oh, yeah. It's that time of year. We got a banana slug right here. In the middle of the trail. Definitely make sure when you're walking through these places, if you are going to hike these places to get exercise and you're maintaining your 6-foot social distance from people, that you're also maintaining a social distance from banana slugs, because they're really slow. And they're just creeping along here, looking for detritus to munch on, kind of the janitors of our redwood forests. And I'm going to change my view and look up around here. Now we are in this epic redwood forest. And these trees, as massive they are and as insignificant as we all may seem in their presence, these trees are depending on wildlife such as salmon as part of their survival. Because salmon come up here, they bring their nutrients to forests all along these rivers and are an important part of the ecology of these redwood trees. These salmon are. And so we have come from just a few hundred yards out there on the riverbank, this open area where it's probably 10 degrees warmer than it is here where I'm at in this dense, dark, coniferous forest. And now we've hopefully gotten a better idea of why trees need salmon, why salmon need trees. I'm going to be back next week, same time. We'll be learning a little bit more about salmon and their habitat, their needs from some other location, maybe somewhere else along the Eel River, or maybe even farther north. So I want to thank everyone for joining me. I want to encourage everyone to make sure to follow the guidelines that are outlined to maintain your social distancing. Make sure to shelter in place, and if you are going to go out, to keep your distance from people. Make sure to wash your hands. I got a little hand sanitizer here I'm going to use after. I'm going to wipe down some of this equipment as well. And everyone be safe, and I hope that you've enjoyed this glimpse of what you have to look forward to when you're all able to come back out here and comfortably visit these forests and visit these state parks. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, and make sure to go on to the California State Parks Facebook page to get more information about the state of the parks and just kind of the day-to-day updates. And also make sure to keep checking the North Coast Redwoods as well as the Humboldt Redwoods State Park Facebook pages to get more updates and get more cool videos and live streams as well. So everyone, thank you for joining me, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.